Good evening, everyone. Once again, this is Prithvi, and I'm here contributing strategically to learning and development at Zoin Group and your host for this evening. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to our webinar. But before we dive into our insightful discussion on the future of work, adapting HR practices in GCCs for tomorrow's challenges, let me introduce you to something very special, the GCC Workplace Awards. Our Workplace Awards initiative is more than just a recognition. It's a platform that fosters learning, networking, and growth opportunities. Powered by Zoin Group, we are gearing up for a grand event on August 2nd, 2024. And today we are hosting the second episode of our pre-event webinar series. Amidst this growth of GCCs, it's essential that we recognize the efforts and the contribution of these GCCs. By acknowledging their achievements, we are not only celebrating their successes, but also inspiring others to strive for excellence. We're proud to announce that we are the first to host India's GCC Workplace Awards, which aims to spotlight the exceptional work of these GCCs and the individuals. Now you might be wondering, why should my organization nominate? Well, here are some compelling reasons. Firstly, you will receive distinguished recognition among your peers. You'll also enhance brand visibility, peer learning, and gain access to invaluable networking opportunities. Also, you will receive insightful analysis and expert advice to further improve your workplace culture. Now let's explore the diverse award categories that we have in store for you all. For the company, we have top 24 of 2024, top 6 from emerging cities, top 6 in diversity and inclusion, top 3 in employee learning and development, top 3 in employee rewards and recognition. But it doesn't just stop there. We also have exciting individual categories. They are Site Leader of the Year, HR Leader of the Year, Talent Acquisition Leader of the Year. Our selection process begins with organizations nominating themselves for the awards. Following the nomination, they are required to complete both the employee and the employer survey. Submissions undergo a thorough evaluation considering different factors like learning and development, employee engagement, rewards and recognition, and many more. Finally, we announce the deserving winners. Let's peek into what the store has in for us. From pre-event webinars to grand event itself, scheduled on August 2nd, 2024, with over 400 expected participants, is an exclusive gathering featuring keynote sessions, panel discussion, fireside chats, and winner announcement. The event will also receive media coverage, amplifying recognition for our winners. And also be assured of the post-event perks where you will gain access to valuable insights about best practices at GCC workplaces. We'd like to announce that in the midst of June, we are coordinating the CHRO meeting in collaboration with the Karnataka government. Additionally, we are very proud to share that we have received over 200 plus nominations for the award so far. Now, if your organization is a GCC and you have not nominated yet, click on the website that is being sent in the chat box. Please note that the contact details are also displayed on the screen. You can also scan the QR code for the contact details. Feel free to reach out to us for any further queries. Thank you. That's all about GCC Workplace. Now moving ahead with today's webinar, let me just have a quick guidelines on the screen. The content discussed and presented belongs solely to GCC Workplace Conversation. To ensure quality, both mic and camera have been disabled. The chat will be open following the end of the discussion for question and answer. Participants accessing the session through LinkedIn are encouraged to post their inquiries in the comment section, while those connecting via Zoom are invited to utilize the dedicated Q&A section for the question. For technical support, please note down the contact number displayed on the screen. Now, moving ahead to the most exciting part of today's webinar, let's meet our esteemed speakers who will be sharing their thoughts and views today. First up, we have Hariharan Subramanian. Hariharan Subramanian, with over 18 years of experience in HR, he is a dynamic leader adept in talent management and recognized as an iconic HR figure. From TCS to IRIS software, his journey reflects a commitment to excellence, earning him accolades like top 20 best HR leaders in 2022 and most iconic HR leader in India. A very warm welcome to you, Hariharan. Next, we have Sanjeev Prasad with a career spanning 2 decades. Sanjeev Prasad is a strategic visionary in HR leadership, shaping landscape at Samsung, Nokia, and Trilogy. Recognized for fostering cultures of excellence, his profound understanding of talent dynamics and organizational change has made him a respected figure in the HR community. A sincere welcome to you, Sanjeev.
Yeah, thanks, Prithvi.
We also have Chetan Khanna across professional services, manufacturing, hospitality, and education and research sectors. Chetan's 2-decade journey has been remarkable by impactful HR practices, crafting bespoke human capital strategies tailored to organizational needs. His proactive leadership fuels sustainable growth and organizational effectiveness. A heartfelt welcome to you, Chetan. Last but not the least, moderating the session, we have Vishal Chinchure, a senior manager, global talent acquisition and operation at State Street, brings 15 years of diverse experience in talent acquisition, learning and development, operations, and global mobility. Renowned for his transformative impact, he has collaborated with industry giants like MDPL, IBM, and State Street. Vishal's commitment to knowledge dissemination is evident through his role as a distinguished guest speaker and best-selling author. A sincere welcome to you, Vishal.
Thank you.
Now, without further ado, I'll hand over the reins to Vishal, who will be moderating today's discussion. Remember, we'll have a dedicated Q&A session in the last 15 minutes, so feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box. We're also streaming live on LinkedIn through Join Group's page. Viewers can also drop your questions in the comment box. Over to you, Vishal.
All right. Thank you. Prithvi, thank you so much and lovely energy. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion. Firstly, let me thank Join Group for having me as a moderator for today's increasingly relevant topic in our globalized world, the future of GCCs, that is Global Capability Centers. I would like to start this conversation in the context of remote working and the future of GCCs. The COVID-19 pandemic has sparked significant transformation in every sector, including GCCs. This expensive center centralized both workforce and infrastructure for operation and IT support, faced an urgent need to evolve. We saw how an old on-site model of working, which was expected to be practiced and accepted for years, became outdated in flash, and pushing organizations to quickly shift to remote setup within a day's notice. Right? We all remember those days. So on one hand, organizations saw potential cuts in real estate needs to related expenses by 20 to 40%, saving up a significant portion of operating cost. On the other hand, it became challenging to maintain service levels and employee satisfactions. So now this brings me to my first question, and I would like to divert this to you, Sanjeev. So Sanjeev, how has the shift to remote work impacted the operating cost and the real estate needs of GCCs? And what strategies have been most effective in managing remote teams, ensuring employee engagement?
Okay, thanks, Vishal, for the question. And thanks to Zioin and Anuj and all of you to have me here. I look forward to hearing all of you. So I think I would like to first start by saying that since this is future of work and it's about how it is impacting GCCs and how are GCCs preparing to tackle those challenges. We started off with remote working, but remote working is not the only future of work challenge. So there are, of course, many others. The remote working part of it has been very severely manifested in the recent past, of course, because of COVID. But remote working as a concept is not entirely new. It has actually been around for at least a decade and a half. And it just kind of got very severely accelerated because of the COVID phenomenon.
Yeah.
Actually, when this happened, coming back to remote work, part of it, there was a one-time increase in operating costs because of the added infrastructure deployment and the added employee welfare costs that were necessary to enable remote work. But after that, uh, it was offset by, of course, the reduction of travel costs to a large extent, because travel obviously dwindled to zero, and that also constituted a large part of costs. And I'm sure the situation may be different in different industries, but after that, we went back to the old normal that main part of operational costs or the challenge of operational costs continued to be capital investments and human capital. Uh, the normalization of operational costs after the COVID phenomenon kind of ceased to make an impact, or the new normal came into being, was not really as much as it would seem otherwise. And yes, the initial part of it was, I think, very, very because it was something new. So I think everyone embraced it. So there was a lot of engagement initially. And I think people were very happy to kind of work from home and kind of prove that it worked in that context. I think we didn't have most of the GCs didn't have an option anyway, because this was a global phenomenon. It was not restricted just to one country or one region. So everyone adapted to the same kind of practices. It was something new for everyone. So everyone embraced it fully. There was a lot of positive collaboration and stuff like that. Once again, when the new normal came up, one of the challenges was definitely around employee engagement. And I think if you look at another cultural factor that is impacting the future of work, which is the new generation's impact. So how are they looking at, things like work-life preferences and their attitude towards a career or a job, uh, attitudes towards things like loyalty, and what is their preferred workplace going to be all about, and stuff like that. Uh, this was actually becoming a more major challenge, and I'm sure other speakers will give some more insight on how they face these challenges and how they actually overcame those in the course of time.
Next question is directed to Hariharan. So to Hariharan, we would like to know how has shift to remote working impacted employee experience and productivity so far in your experience?
Okay. Very good afternoon, good evening to all those who have joined. Thank you for your time, and thanks to the Zoom group for organizing this. Very important topic, hot topic. We have been talking about it in bits and pieces. Probably we are now consolidating the thoughts, is what I would say. And GCC is not a very common terminology for all organizations earlier. It was for bigger organizations which had much bigger presence everywhere. Probably thanks to COVID, it has become a scenario in every organization in some or the other form, whether small or big. Having said that, from an employee experience perspective, I think when Sanjeev was talking about operating cost, where transportation and all that is like getting reduced, from an employee side, it was looked at, okay, the commute stress is less. They can set up their own workstation wherever they are. It could be at their own home or in a cozy corner in a cafe, whatever is comfortable for them. End of the day, it's like, am I connected to the organization? Am I connected to the overall purpose of the organization? And am I able to deliver what I'm supposed to? Complete flexibility, lot of autonomy that the individuals have got, which has increased their productivity. From a distractions perspective, some felt that, fewer distractions because I can focus much, but some felt that it would be nice if I come back once in a while, connect with people. But from a time perspective, they are able to save more time, and it has created much better work-life balance for a lot of people. And for a HR, if you see, the access to talent has widened up. It is not just like, I need to limit it to 10 kilometers from my office, 50 kilometers from my office, who can commute. And if they are going to come, what is the arrangement that I need to do? Where is the cafeteria? All those things have, just now changed. And we can look for talent in different locations, in different countries, those who are ready to, and those who are the best fit, they are able to take it up and then run it very fast. So that way, it has created a lot of variety, very innovative practices, fresh thoughts, different culture. Culture has played a very, very important role, I would say, because it has given clear uh, idea in terms of people have to get adapted and then start becoming a global citizen. When you are part of a GCC, then you have to become a global citizen. You can't just talk about, okay, this is what I know, this is what I'm comfortable with. So it's an eye opener, and people are enjoying it.
That's really great thoughts, Haryana. I think even I feel the same thing, that I mean, obviously remote work has its pros and cons. For a lot of people, it is pros, and I think when it comes to HR practices, when HR team to communicate with a lot of team members, it might sound a little bit challenging, but I think it is diversified and very good thoughts. So I would like to know, what about I mean, on the same context, how your views differ, Sanjeev and I mean Chetan. So over to you, Sanjeev.
Okay, why don't we hear Chetan out first on this?
Sure.
Can you repeat the question out there? Prithvi, I didn't get the question clearly.
Yes, sure, Chetan. So we want to know how to shift, how has the shift to remote working, impacted on the employee experience and productivity at your workplace?
So I think it has been a blend, is what we need to see. It's a fine balance that has come into place. There are the trend of saying that there is a remote working arrangement has in itself seen an evolution per se. And that evolution is that one was that I'll work only from a remote location. I'm sitting out of my office is in Bangalore, and I'm going to sit out of, let's say, Missouri and do my job. That's or Goa sitting out job. So that I think that trend is something that had taken shape for a lot of people, where they wanted to work from different locations, from their home base locations. That has evolved, and it has more turned into flexible work arrangements now. Sitting at home has its positives, but sitting only at home also comes with a set of its own challenges, which are related to communication or collaboration. There are times when you can say employee isolation can happen. There are things which come into play like security risk, data protections. There are productivity aspects that come into space. There is a digital divide that does still exist to some extent in different places, which is also a different ball game altogether. And there are, of course, cultural and time zones difference which come into play. So that aspect of assimilation and creating a unified workforce itself has been undergoing a shift. But that said, I think it's time to look at remote working arrangement more as an approach where it's a flexible way of working, where we have a fine blended approach of saying what is the best way when we are supposed to be in a work location, when are we supposed to be in a more convenient location, which is convenient to us, whether it's our house or it's our own place. Because while there are aspects around my more me time, I don't have to travel, I don't have to get stuck in traffic, my engagement level changes because of that, my productivity level as presumably increases on account of that thing. There are different challenges which I just articulated which come into play. So the question of saying that remote working is a thing of today and will be something which will exist is in itself post-COVID, in the post-COVID world, is undergoing a bit of a reinvention because of the different experiences that employees are going through, as well as the organizations are going through. And therefore, the need for ensuring that there is a midway that comes into play becomes of paramount importance.
Very good thoughts. Thank you for sharing those, Chetan. So I think Vishal is now in, but definitely would like to hear if Sanjeev has anything to add on the same concept. Otherwise, I'm handing it over to Vishal.
No, totally agree with Hari and Chetan that, first of all, I think remote work is a concept that has come to stay. I don't think anyone can deny that that the way forward is to look at remote work more seriously, and look at it from a point of view of flexibility, like Chetan said, that it is not like uh, entirely rule based. But at the same time, the problem that happened was that people wanted rules. So in the initial euphoria of remote work, a lot of companies, in fact, actually, started giving fairly I think aggressive declarations. There's a fairly large company which we all know pretty well, who kind of declared very famously that in about 3 to 4 years' time, only 25% of our workforce, and we're talking about a workforce of like lakhs of employees, only 25% of that workforce will actually work out of offices. The same company about a year back had to issue a diktat for their employees to return to work at their base locations, wherever they are actually posted. And that created a lot of furor in the media as well. So again, going back to what Chetan mentioned around this balanced approach is very necessary. So there have to be some rules, because end of the day, you also want work to be done. And some of that work does require collaboration. Some of that work does require inclusive collaboration between different teams who need to be at the same place at the same time. Otherwise, it becomes like really difficult. And at the same time, the flexibility part of it, the fact that employees love it, and in general, also plays a huge part. Of course, it's a huge force that is driving the whole thing. But one of the biggest, I think, contradictions that I actually experienced was, and it was very interesting, that managers hated it in general, because the manager had to ensure that the work allocation between people, and that everyone was working together on the same cause and at the same time, etc. That was proving to be a challenge, but at the same time, employees were loving it. And of course, there were a lot of cases of like free riders coming on the scene and stuff like that, because free riding became relatively easier in this kind of a scenario. So I think there's a lot of work that HR had to do to balance things out, and ultimately we kind of like, I think the strategy that seemed to work, and not just for me but for many other people, that many of my friends, was, okay, make some rules, but allow managers to take the decision for their own teams in terms of how they want to work it out with them.
Good. That's again wonderful thought share, Sanjeev. I think you have expressed what the HR team feels. So over to you, Vishal. You can take it ahead from here.
Thank you, Anne, and my apologies, everybody. I don't know this never happened, and technology sometimes, you see. Okay. Anyways, now since we were discussing about remote working, and I'm going to bring in something which is out of the blue. We all of us heard a lot about moonlighting, right? And when we saw this was such a hype during this work from home scene. So I wanted to understand, where do you think organizations? I wouldn't say that we failed. Where do you think this has come in picture? And what do you think we as a leadership group, or you guys as leaders, would think to tackle moonlighting? And Hariharan, I would like to hear from you, and then we'll move to Sanjeev and Chetan.
Sure. Thanks, Vishal. I would say that, every initiative or every change, when it comes, there are some ethical hindrances. I don't think HR has been smooth enough when we started with any practice or any movement or any growth, right? Where every phase of the industry growth, this has come up in different forms. Sometime back, when we were talking about background verifications, we were pulling in NASCOM to see whether they can be the body who can, store all the data and give it to the organization. But that doesn't work, really well. Having said that, is it easy to manage this? I don't think so. But at the same time, somewhere, it is better to move to some gig economy kind of a model, and then you yourself start giving them consulting, knowing that if that is the approach that person is going to. But it can't be for every role. Wherever we are finding it, and I think there has to be a fantastic collaboration between HR leaders when we handle it, because unethical practices are not acceptable anywhere, for sure. I can give you classic examples. I'm part of various HR leaders WhatsApp group. sometimes we get to know things even using that. Hey, that guy is working for you, he's working for me as well, right? So, and then we help each other and find out. Also, the thing, if you see, after great resignations, when market was in boom, this was like on peak, and now slowly things are settling down. I wouldn't say that it is business as usual, but at the same time, it is not as peak as what it was, especially for technology organizations. And when the opportunities are also becoming limited, and when the opportunities are also becoming right, then automatically moonlighting will subside. But we need to wait for the phase, and that's what we are going through, because we don't have a common body in the organization or in the country to control these things and to guide us, saying that this is okay, this is not okay, where can be the database to find out. Sometimes PF helps us when we check the UAN numbers to see whether they are there are multiple PF accounts added, those kind of things. So and it has become a practice now as part of onboarding process. We are checking it. Okay, 1 point check. That could be. But you can't control beyond certain things when they are registering using their mother's name, father's name, cousin's name, somebody who is still in their college become an employee of some company. Yeah. So even organizations have to adapt to the ethical thing.
I agree, and it can be very, very hard. And again, we are not in school, and I think there are definitely some expectations when an employee comes in an organization. We definitely expect them to address and hold the values in their sleeves while they are working. So yeah, I think you're right. Chetan, what do you think as a leadership from the leadership side? I'm sorry, I'll just come to you what you were saying, but what do you, also address this during this. What do you think from the leadership side we can do to enforce or encourage people but to take this more serious?
I think we have to take a step back there. Okay, the whole concept of moonlighting and all, while it may have been there, it got accelerated in especially the COVID times. And what happened in COVID? COVID accelerated the whole digital transformation across the world. Right? Everybody became more aware of digitalization. Everybody wanted to become more on the digital side. E-commerce picked up. Every organization started moving towards artificial intelligence. There was high focus on machine learning that came into focus. Suddenly, the concepts like deep learning started picking up, and there was suddenly a demand for skills which were very, very niche, and at the same point of time, the skills which were very, very basic. For example, Java has been done in India since the 90s, but Java became a hard to hire skill for all, and it was not because the people were not there. It was because the demand supply gap became so huge that things started changing significantly. So what happened? What happened is that people started, the basic human nature started coming out somewhere, that I want more money because of this. Why not encash it? Correct? And that is a phase. It's a phase that comes into picture, and these phases we have all had long careers behind us, and we have all seen those ups and downs and such fads coming in and coming out. Will this end? Answer is no. There will be pockets which it will continue. Will it be able to track everything? Answer is no. If you are able to track it out, your employment terms of employment says that you cannot have 2 jobs at the same point of time. Obviously, as an organization, one will take an action as appropriate under the law of the land and the terms of employment that you have to take. But the point which Hari made was that things have changed. Yes, they have shifted. They have slowed down. To the extent that they were, I think it is coming more of, it's not slowed down. I think it is reaching a balancing stage, and we've still pick up ups and downs, but COVID was an aberration. So that trend, is it there? Will it stay? Answer is yes. Will it subside to a very large extent? Answer also is yes. More importantly, it is what you spoke to me about, what can leaders do about it? There is only that much that a leader, you cannot control everything that is happening around you. What is important is the organizational fabric, the cultural fabric that comes into play. How is that, or how strong is that? How are ethics and values looked at into your organization? Is it just a job that people come to do? And I'm going slightly higher on the higher plane, but is it just the job that people come to do, or is it a Is it a very strong culturally driven company where there is an alignment, where there is strong processes, where there are strong alignment, strong assimilation processes, there is strong engagement forums which are there, there are clear communication lines between the leaders, there is a understanding of what the company stands for, what's the mission, vision, or the objective of the company, and has it been drilled down to that extent in your employees, in your teams, and do they really understand and align to the big picture? Because aberrations will always be there, right? If 90% of your people are doing the right thing, then it's okay. You will always have 5 to 10% people which will be, there will be some differences, some thought process, and a misalignment. People have their own approaches. All of that is there. But if it's the reverse, that 10% is doing the right thing and 90% is doing something different, then that's the concern area that you should be worried about. Right? So it's a 90-10 or a 80-20 rule, whichever you want to pick up on that side. But the question that I'm trying to address is 2 points in summary. One, this whole thing will subside or has already subsided to a large extent. 2, will you be able to control everything? Answer is no. But build a framework and an organization so strong and culturally evolved that people are so connected to the job policies company that they don't start thinking about it, because at no point of time will you be able to control such large workforces that exists in different kinds of company, lakhs of people existing in some companies in India. You'll not be able to monitor all the time, right? So those are the 2 moot points, I think, which are of focus area as leaders and how the market is evolving on that side.
Sure. Thank you so much, Chetan. So Sanjeev, now this one is to you. Now, while we're talking about moonlighting and how organization plays an important role bringing down the whole value system, so then it comes about redefining the employee value proposition. Okay, now in order to stay top on employee value proposition, since it has gained significant importance, and I think it definitely is important in attracting, engaging, and retaining top talent, right? So work dynamics have changed due to technology, globalization, and preference of new generation of workers seeking personalized experience, promoting companies to rethink their talent management system. So if you ask me, we have moved from the time when it was an employer's market. Now we move to employee market, and we are all shifting towards more human-centric approach of having this whole talent management system, right? Recognizing employee as a whole individual, and giving a lot of importance to life outside of work, and this aims in creating people advantage. So my question to you is, how has employee value proposition evolved in response to the changing dynamic of works, and what impact it has on retaining talent, especially from the HR side or the talent acquisition side?
Okay, sure. So I think there are 2 sides to it. So first is that I think over the last 15 years, many of the multinational companies and their GCC arms in India and other countries, they obviously put in a lot of investment and effort to try to portray themselves as the best in class. There were several workplace recognitions that were touted or advertised, certifications, best place to work, etc., and all that. So a lot of people went after all of that, and the result is that, in my opinion, I think we all found ourselves to be at the same place after about 10 years. So every place was great. I mean, there were of course cultural nuances that were different from here to there, but whether you talk about office infrastructure, whether you talk about perquisites, whether you talk about every company was just trying to outdo the other, and everyone finally landed up on nearly the same page. So there was no kind of unique proposition that really stood out. Ultimately, the only unique proposition that really stood out is the culture of the company and the longevity of the company. That is the company competitive in the global market? Because of the entire volatility of that we've seen over the last 15 years, so many companies folding up or getting acquired, or and so on and so forth. Their companies have been acquired like 3 or 4 times over the last just 5-6 years itself. And that, I think, has created a much bigger uncertainty amongst people than, how good is my company in terms of perquisites and, culture and stuff like that. So culture, I would still say, is a very important differentiator, because that's one of the first things that people still look out for when they go to places like Glassdoor and Quora and all of that. They try to find out what are the decision making process in the company. Is diversity, inclusion valued? Are individual opinions valued? How is how is my voice going to be heard, and so on and so forth. So that is still a very important factor. Now, in the future, the real challenge, I think, for not just HR, because this is too important a topic to be left to HR, really, but I think the entire leadership of every company needs to figure this out in their own way. That what is it that how they will solve the contradiction between a younger generation who doesn't seem to value some of the things that were seen to be valued 10 years or 15 years back.
ago, yeah.
Just a great office, or having a commute. They're still valued, like free good food in the office, good infrastructure, and stuff like that, good perquisites. Travel, of course, I think for India particularly is a very big perquisite. Like, how often do I get to travel abroad, and stuff like that. But increasingly, what we are finding also is that the younger generation is going more towards what we call a rational engagement with companies rather than emotional engagement. And the minute you separate the emotional from the rational, we have a challenge, because till now we are like always, okay, you are part of my family. You're a family, right? So I will look after you like a family, and we will grow together and stuff like that. But at the same time, in the last 3 or 4 years, so many companies have resorted to so many people getting out of jobs, that notion of family has got, I think, very severely damaged in the process. So what else then? And then we see the younger generation, they want to they have their own pattern of life. They seem to have a very different preference in terms of work-life preferences, or, how they want to live their life. And it seems to be a little different from what companies are trying to attract people with. And I don't think that there is a solution as yet. But in my opinion, it will lead to definitely a very big, including this moonlighting issue, it will lead to a very big shift in the employee-employer relationship and contracts in itself. So you have to recognize different categories of employees: the gig workers, the people who want to work on a particular project with you, but not more than that. The people who want to work with you for a certain time, but not more than that. And these are, I think, realities that need to be recognized by companies. So irrespective of what they do in terms of their employer value proposition, but it is still important that companies have an employer value proposition, that they do state their cultural footprint and foundations very clearly, that this is what we stand for, because ultimately that is how the company will be judged. And people who may go out may also want to come back to the same company based on those parameters, based on the employee, on the experience they had working there. And that's really important.
Brilliant. Thank you. So, Chetan, now this one is to you. So, again, I remember those times, especially, post-COVID, or that time when we all were working from home. Me as a recruiter, and I've heard this from so many of my fellow recruiters, that every employee I tried to contact and tried to hire him, they were holding at least one extra offer from the one what we were offering them, right? So we have gone through all that time. I'm sure you have heard from your teams as well. So I think this kind of disrupted the whole market. Not only in terms of the job market, but also in the term of salaries. So I think I have seen some examples where employees had 3 offer letters with them, and they were ready to move for just 10,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees extra than what they were getting in their current role, right? Or the job they were holding in their hand. So I think that this was a big challenge. So I wanted to understand that what do you think, not just considering what happened in past, while the market has got better now, but considering what happened in the past, I know how we get ready for the future. What do you think are few strategies in your mind you think we can do to attract the best talent, especially in the tech side, where the market is so volatile, and the job openings are like, it's there, and it's like there's no tomorrow for most of the people who are applying for job. Chetan, you're on mute. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Vishal. And I think it's a very pertinent question in the context of GCCs that are coming up. And I'll tell you why. First of all, let's go back to the COVID times. I always maintain that when the tide is high, a lot of people grow up with the tide, right? But when the tide ebbs, then you see the real thing. And I think a lot of it is getting manifested, unfortunately, in the situation that we have seen. People took huge hikes. I mean, 2x, 3x, 4x became the norm. You're right, 4 offers, 5 offers, and then the person is going for the 6th offer as well, and finally ends up with the 7th offer, joining them. So that shifted. I gave you the example of Java and how Java became a, a rare commodity in the market as such. So yes, we did what was required to be done from a business standpoint, and I think it's important that. I don't know how we will do it. I don't have a straight answer, but can there be a body? Can there be a more ethical consideration coming in the rest of the organizations? Because if you are seeing 4 or 5 offers, would you want to give that offer to the 6th person, because the person may still not join you and go for the 7th offer? But yes, I don't blame the HR and the talent acquisition team, because they are under pressure from the business to hire. They are not the ones who are always making the final decisions on whether that is the right thing, whether they may feel it or not. So I think that was a phase. As I said, it has passed. It had happened in 2008, and immediately after 2008, for those who have had those long careers after the financial collapse of Lehman Brothers. So we saw a huge surge at that point of time, and after 15 years or 12 years, or 13 years is what we saw it again coming in. So it's a phase, it's a cycle. I think it's gone. It will take some time, and hopefully it will take more time to come back again. Coming back to the point of what are the future strategies, and I will talk more in the context of GCCs. GCCs that open in India today, you have close to, as per NASSCOM report, you have about 15 to 1600 GCCs which are existing in India, and not all of them are the biggest known names that everybody knows. I mean, everybody knows those 5 or 10 top companies which have 100,000 and 200,000, 300,000 people. So how does a GCC establish itself as an employer of a choice in the market, and a choice of, and has a registration in the minds of the people, saying that, okay, this is the company, it's a great company. If you do a research, you'll go in, you'll figure it out, all of those things will get done. But how do you create a brand of sorts? Because hiring strategies based on numbers, based on salaries, based on money will always be there. But what creates a brand in the market? What is your strategy that's going to be there? Do you have a brand? Do people know about you? Is the employer branding strong enough in the market? Is there a word of mouth factor that is there about the company? Do the people who are there in your organization want to bring in more people? Right? That's the most of the consideration. It all goes back to the culture and the intrinsic nature of the organization that it is, of sorts, saying that what are the elements that make people happy and engaged in an organization. Are you looked at as a diversity focused employer? Food, facilities, all of them will be able to offer at some degree or some different degree of stuff. Catering, getting a catering done in the office is not the primary criteria. But what is the organization about? Is it values diversity? Is it gives you equal opportunities? Are the people looking at long-term careers out there as against looking at it as a job? And that is where the hiring strategy defines. So internally you are strong. You create a setup for yourself which is externally facing, and you are able to market yourself. So recruitment marketing is something which is extremely crucial in today's time, especially in the context of GCCs, as to how you will be able to create a brand recall value for yourself in the minds of prospective employees. So those are the things which are there, and everybody has understood that. After this COVID wave, people have also understood that, yeah, You may be needed for projects. There's a fresher projects. You get some salary hikes, but at the end of the day, a sustainable career comes from a sustainable organization which has clear policies, good culture, strong culture, and is focused on business as well as equally focused on creating an environment where employees feel valued in the system. So it is a combination of creating a holistic human capital strategy, which strengthens you both internally as well as externally. And elements of strong workforce leadership, focus, communication, and the works comes into play, because that is what then you go through the recruitment marketing and tell the people. So it's a complete, assembly line of what you put from the start to what finally comes out is something that is of utmost value and importance.
Thank you. Thank you, Chetan. Now, while we spoke about talent a little bit, so Hariharan, I wanted to know the immediate thing which comes to my mind is all about skills and upskilling, right? So the World Economic Forum estimated that by 2025, 50% of the employees will need reskilling, okay, due to the adoption of new technology. And in fact, 5 years from now, 2/3 of the skills considered important in today's job requirement will change. Okay, this highlights the importance of adapting and continuous learning should be part of any organization's strategy. Now, I was also reading an article by Economic Times, and it said that the cycle of change has moved from 7 years to 1 year in the recent past, and it is estimated to go even lower as AI takes a lot of control, right? And in this era of Industry 4.0 and beyond, top skills encouraged by industry includes analytical thinking, creative thinking, AI, big data, and etc. However, skills like leadership, social influencing, curiosity, lifelong learning, resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility are expected to see some demand as well. And these are again not so much spoken about, but a lot of importance is always dwelled upon in any organizations. So I wanted to understand from you, Hari, how are reskilling and upskilling initiatives being implemented to prepare the workforce for a future challenge?
Okay, thank you, Vishal. Very nice question. Quite a long one. Now I need to just consolidate all those points in my answer. But to begin with, when we look at reskilling and upskilling, let me just continue with my answer. As I said, upskilling and reskilling is not something new. But what has happened is, like what Chetan was talking about, employees have started looking at two things. I was just saying that organizations have to change their outlook, because employees have started looking at it as like whom they are working for. Is this organization purpose driven? Is this organization value driven? Do they have variety in terms of business lines and all that? And the second thing is what I'm going to do. That skill part is like a very catchy one. Are they working on latest technologies? Will I get an opportunity to learn something new every time? So people are also very open. Sometime back, I remember when we were moving out of mainframe as a concept and then moving into latest technologies, we need to push people to come out of those mainframe core developers and then train them on something new and adapt to it. Whereas now people are volunteering, people are asking like, what are all the new technologies, especially when they are spread out across. Connecting with them helps us. But at the same time, there are some challenges when it comes to all the important skills that Vishal was highlighting, whether it is resilience or whether it is change management, all that. Doing it virtual might not create a big impact is what we could see, especially in leadership development. We do see some challenges there. But with hybrid, things are changing, and with a lot of e-learning modules, a lot of e-learning opportunities, we are doing it. And as an industry, I would say this, people are prepared for reskilling and people are prepared for upskilling. They are ready for it. They don't look at Java as their career. They don't look at, okay, if I start something with IT support, I'm moving to a DevOps. Okay, DevOps is my career. This is what I'm going to do for the next 10 years. They don't look at it that way. They are ready to see, okay, what next, what more, what new, and how I can adapt myself, how I can learn for that. But at the same time, huge investment. Ongoing investment for the organizations, and organizations are preparing for it, because sometimes return on investments are immediate, sometimes long term, because we are preparing future workforce, especially when it comes to more spoken AI. Okay, how much we are actually using it on a day-to-day basis, or how much we will be using it in our business operations or in our client products. So there are huge investments on that, but it will be an ongoing one. it is an attractive factor to retain talent as well. People are looking for it. What is a team for me? How much I'm learning, especially when Sanjeev was talking about the longevity, right? Gone old days where we call somebody and then have a long conversation with them, praise them, saying that you have been in the company for 10 years, we want to recognize you and all that. Now, if it is 3 years, wow. Sometimes, and technology industry has this typical language saying that how many years of experience you have. I have 1.4 years, I have 1.45 years, which we would have not heard of. We know 1 year or 1.5 years. So, longevity is changing. So if you need to retain the right talent and identifying whom you need to invest, if you are going to do it across, then that might not give us big results. If you are going to do some upskilling, especially, it has to be for your high potentials. It has to be for your top talent. Identify, invest on them so that they will be able to take up future challenges, future projects, things that are there in the pipeline, and trusting them, you will be able to build on something. For leaders, it is very difficult time because the opportunities sometimes are not equivalent to the number of people who are trained also. So they need to do a crucial role in terms of how they are going to educate people, how they are going to help them to understand, because the patience level also might go down sometime. Like, hey, I'm trained, I want to move here, I want to come out of it, but it's not a plug and play, right? So without having a business hindrance, how this transition happens and how this movement happens, so that we are prepared for the new skill. At the same time, certain things, old technologies run on the mill. What has to run has to run. And when I look at this one, we were talking about employee value proposition. I think I want to add my point of view there. The reason is that the purpose-driven thing is actually changing, and well-being is becoming gaining a lot of importance, is what I would say. Purposes are not interesting. People are not interested. They are not ready to pay even 12% PF. They are saying, I will pay 1,800 just for the government remaining, give it to me. But can you give me a gym voucher? Can you give me a health-related things? Can you give me something that I can become a better person? And that's what the organization has to contribute on, right? So well-being is becoming a very, very important factor when it comes to employee value proposition, especially mental well-being, especially when they are working in one particular place, not meeting anybody, and they know their colleagues only in a Zoom tile. Sometimes when we do all these annual meetings or once in 6 months, they surprised to see, are you that guy? Oh, you don't look like that in that Zoom tile. So it is very, very different mindset, right? And that's a big challenge for leaders when it comes to pushing the team, be ready for the change.
Sure. Okay. So one thing, which I have often heard, and people often talk about. I've also heard this from leaders. So when we ask an employee, why are you leaving this job? One of the primary reasons is, I don't feel encouraged, or I don't. I mean, I think I have got a shelf life in this organization, and my learning has stopped. So I think this is, and I'm sorry if I would have missed something, since my internet was again poor here. So apologies for that. So what do you think as a leadership we can try to do to identify and see how real that is, and how we can fill this gap if there is any? I would encourage any of the leaders to pick this.
Yeah, see that. So
please, Hari, go ahead. Yeah.
Is it okay with the others? Okay, so I was just trying to probably highlight on the recognition part of it. And people want to know, people are not very happy when you give them a trophy or a certificate and a photograph with that. Yes, there are people who are enjoying it, because many a times we are talking about GCC, we are only talking about technology organizations. There are other organizations, there are core industries, there are healthcare, insurance organizations, core hospitals, hotel industries where employees are working, who are also somewhere connected to the GCC model, right? And I come from an organization which has a good mix of KPO and a software organization. So I see two different culture. What is okay for a software group might not be okay for a KPO group. So it's very different. But at the same time, they want to know what I can do to win that. So that clarity is very, very important. You can't have hey, we will tell you, hey, we considered you kind of things. People want to know why I'm not there. What should I do if I need to get recognized? And the recognitions have to be more towards innovation, then people enjoy it. The recognition towards higher performance, people are enjoying it. As I said, longevity is not a catchy recognition anymore. And the recognition methodologies are also increasing, where we don't spend on buying something and giving it to them, where we move to vouchers model, we move to a e-card model so that they can choose their own gifts. And we are trying to touch some of the gifts closer to their families and not just to the individual, right? And we don't spend on, sometimes we don't even spend on merchandise with branded t-shirts, like in the organization branded t-shirts or bags or anything, because it might not be interesting for them anymore. Instead, they would like to buy something of their choice. A wildcraft bag would be more interesting for them, which they need not use it only for office but for other purpose. And a lot of employee experience based rewards are also coming up, which is interesting for people too. But when it comes to identifying the right, managers find it a little difficult, especially in a virtual model, in a hybrid model. Are we having enough information? And when we are growing in big numbers, are we tapping the right person and recognizing them? So no, it's a big thing that leaders are learning. As leaders, all of us are learning. I'm sure we will be able to tackle that as well. When we can tackle COVID, we can tackle anything. So I'm sure we will be able to handle it.
Sure. Thank you. So now, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, in this whole concept of GCC, I mean, while diversity encompasses various demographics, whereas inclusion creates an environment where we all feel very, very valued, right, as employees. And diversity team leads to innovation and better decision making for businesses and hiring managers, or the business managers, while inclusivity boosts engagement and retention. So inclusive workspace prioritizes diversity, equality, inclusion, and belongingness, ensuring adaptability and attracting top talent. And these strategies may include fostering an inclusive culture, mentorship program, affinity groups, and bias training. Right. So when we think about this, so Sanjeev, I want to understand from you what strategies you think have been most effective in creating inclusive workspace, and how we can embrace diversity and inclusion, contribute to overall business strategy.
Okay, so actually, DEI, which is actually now it's called diversity, equity, and inclusion. So all these three things are now becoming extremely important. But the problem is that it's not really well understood by the majority. How does diversity or equity really help? Because people see it as something that a lot of people speak about, and it's almost like it looks like as if it's more of a feminist kind of a model. But almost 15 years back, it was established by research, and a very famous professor at the University of Duke, from the University of Duke, who has written a book on it as well. I forget the name of it, but I've actually met her at Duke. And she proved that organizations which have higher diversity are likely to be more resilient and also to be more profitable. So she proved that there was a direct link between diversity, and it may not be very apparent. So that, I think, was the one thing, and I'm sure there were many other works and researches around that, which propelled a lot of companies to look at diversity. And in my opinion, the main thing really is that why a lot of companies have not succeeded really well in terms of their diversity programs, which is an article recently that HBR also published, is that they focus mainly on just a target-based approach. Okay, I'm going to hire so many women or so many people with special abilities or stuff like that, and therefore my entire metric is going to be only focused around what percentage of my workforce is really diverse. In my opinion, actually, diversity works when you ensure that there are no impediments to hiring people of different nationalities, races, preferences, gender, and so on and so forth. So there should not be. It's about removal of biases and providing equal opportunity to people, rather than actually adopting a metric-based approach. So that is as far as diversity is concerned. And I think in wherever I have worked, like we've been successful in, and I've been happy that the philosophy of the organization has been like to a large extent, similar to my own in this respect. The important thing actually, and the more important thing that hurts an individual is actually inclusion or the lack of it.
Okay.
Because inclusion is a much bigger bias. Diversity is still something in the wind for most employees. Like, okay, I'm not very sure how diversity is going to help the organization. But inclusion is something that affects me personally.
Hmm.
And the lack of it, if that is practiced in a team in a very big way, is likely to hurt people much more than any other, employee perquisites, benefits, value propositions that you can provide. So at the same time, you also need to have a system by which you cannot, it's not possible to make a decision by consensus all the time, that you hear everyone's opinion and then you decide on what needs to be done. But at the same time, so that is again that balancing act. But at the ground level, I think managers must ensure that they make their teams, the culture of their teams extremely inclusive, and they must ensure that everyone must have a voice, and they should be able to articulate their opinion fearlessly without fear of any kind of action against them for a view that is different from maybe their manager or maybe the management. That is really important. This whole thing of creating a safe workplace is a really, really big challenge, because most people sometimes act in a way that is, and sometimes not with that kind of intention, but because they are so forceful by personality or whatever, they create that kind of workspace where people are afraid to speak up.
Hmm.
And this, I think, is a much bigger challenge that is more commonly seen in workspaces and more commonly discussed amongst employees. Oh, my manager is like that, this decision was like that, or whatever. But it is really, really good to see a lot of companies actually that this is something that is right up at the fore of thought. So long as it's something that people are working on, they will find those solutions, and we will find what are the best practices that will work in different situations for this.
Okay. And while you were talking about bias, so can you think about one example, how bias has been tackled through employee and leadership programs? Can you think about something?
So there are many very good programs on identifying and removing unconscious bias, because many of these biases, see, most of the people don't deliberately create a bias in order to hurt somebody else.
Hmm.
There are, of course, people who do that, and that's a separate issue. That's more of a disciplinary issue then. Okay, and it's kind of more easier to solve in that sense. The bigger difficulty is the unconscious bias, because all of us, including me and you and we all have some part of unconscious bias. So it is about how do we ensure that we are aware of that unconscious bias, and the awareness of that unconscious bias transfers that unconscious bias into conscious bias. So that's the first step. The second step is the ethical part of it, that how do I really provide that bias or go against that bias, or why is this bias hurting my company? For example, Vishal, a long time back, since you're a recruiter, a really, really long time back, there was this person who had this bias of hiring people from lower economic strata. So one of the things he used to ensure when he would interview engineers, and of course, I've been in the tech world, so it was always about hiring engineers, right? He would kind of he had it was almost a semi-conscious bias, actually. It was not completely unconscious.
Okay.
And he had a theory. He said that people who come from very rich backgrounds and rich families, they don't care about longevity at work. They can leave the work, the slightest problem or adversity that happens at the workplace. They will say, okay, like, fine, I'm not going to go into it. I have my parents. I can afford to sit out for a couple of months. Whereas people from middle and lower income stratas will typically like tolerate more of adversity. I mean, that was his logic, really speaking. And it was a very big challenge to kind of address that. And that is not something that we should have as a bias. However logical it may actually appear to be, for the simple reason that when we are losing out, it kind of first of all badges people, which may not be true. There may be a lot of people coming from good backgrounds, good economic backgrounds, but who are still very motivated to make a difference and to provide very good work. So we are losing out on all that kind of talent in the first place. So it's not such a simple bias. So addressing these biases is extremely important, both at the micro level and through programs in the organization, which I have seen actually happening for quite a while now, and they've been reasonably successful. But it cannot be completely eliminated.
I think that is a fantastic example you gave, and maybe or may not, it works in companies' favor when we think about longevity, or he's getting people who will stick around. And it can be different. So I remember talking to one of the gentlemen, and he was a senior recruiter, and when he was hiring for one of the particular departments, he was very hell-bent and saying, I want to hire a male guy. I said, is there a reason why you're looking for it? Women are not great leaders, and she's going to be my client very soon. So I don't want to have. And I think what you're saying is right. And so I think, yeah, bias is something. But how do you think? And Chetan, if you would want to add in, or her, how do you think? How do we identify this kind of thinking, and this kind of bias? And would it be hard because we hear them and then we are trying to fix it? But if you don't hear them, we may or we may not know about it, right? So at leadership level, how do you think we can get in as a leader and try to understand and fix this whole bias thing?
I think again, there are a lot of aspects that you can look at, and I'll just try to keep it very pointed around it. I think the first and the foremost thing is leadership commitment and accountability, and it all boils down to the same aspect, right? What is the leadership thinking? What's the leadership account in the whole process? Hiring practices. I think the hiring practices come into play. Are we saying that for every requisition or every position that opens up, are we going to ensure that there is a definitive hiring pipeline which does come into play as far as diverse candidates are there? In terms of inclusivity, do you have things like resource groups which can be created? Can you create unconscious bias trainings that are there, right? And I'm being a bit tactical here, specifically to make sure that we understand what is it that we can do to reduce it in the minds. Does it exist as unconscious bias? Answer is yes. It may exist in anybody else, right? Like Sanjeev was talking about, it does exist. The question is, you will not be able to pinpoint that whether Vishal has it or not, or Sanjeev has it or not, or Hari has it or not. You have to make consistent messaging, consistent practices to ensure that it gets gradually eliminated from the system. And the system becomes automatically an inclusive place, which automatically weeds out any kind of biases that keep on coming in. And it's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight.
Correct.
And therefore, the constant aspects around accountability, culture, making sure that there are ERGs which are there, employee resource groups which are there, which are going to bring people from different setups into their own play and they create a community where people feel a sense of continuous belonging. And so all of those things come into play when we are talking about the policies and benefits for that matter. I mean, how do you ensure that there is an environment that is created which is inclusive, which creates a an environment of inclusion? I mean, are your maternity policies strong? Are your childcare facilities strong? Are you making sure that there is flexible working which is coming into play depending upon the needs and requirements of different diverse setups coming into play? So those are some of the things which are important to consistently ensure that a messaging, a framework, a setup is created, which is when somebody enters into your organization, they feel safe, secure, and most importantly, have a sense of belonging to the organization. And that's where the bottom line is. The whole story around this comes to simple thing. Do I have a sense of belonging in the space?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Hariharan, you want to?
No, I was just saying that we are missing Vishal again. So
Yeah, I think we missed him again. Well, I think this was a wonderful conversation which we had. So I think we are about time as well, so we might as well end this session. So I think you guys have shared wonderful insights about future of work, especially for GCCs, and I'm sure all of the attendees who have joined will have some takeaways from the session. So before I, end the session, I just like to remind all of them, all the GCCs who have not nominated your organization for GCC Workplace Awards yet, please do nominate, and you will have a lot of things on store for you. So thank you all for joining, and I think Vishal, you're back. So thank you for moderating the session so well, and thank you for all the speakers for wonderfully, putting up your words. So it was great having you all on this, session. Thank you again, and thank you all the attendees.
thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Thanks you, Vishal. Thanks, Prithvi. So
See you. Bye-bye.